In 2009, a man by the name of James Howells proved himself to be a visionary. He started mining Bitcoin before anyone else had even heard of it. James managed to stockpile 7,500 Bitcoins when they were just a fraction of a cent per coin. Eventually, his girlfriend made him stop. She thought that the computer doing the mining was, quote, getting too noisy. James later ended up throwing the hard drive in the trash, and today that mistake has cost him over $400 million. To get your money, you would need that hard drive. Yeah, there's a specific file on that hard drive called a wallet file, which the Bitcoin is stored in. And without that file, there is no way of getting the money back because there is no central server that records a log of it. In 2010, Laszlo Hanyecz bought 2 pizzas for 10,000 Bitcoin, or about $35 at the time. It wasn't the first transaction in Bitcoin, but it was certainly the most widely publicized. Unfortunately, today, those 2 delicious pizzas cost him $500 million. It's stories like this that make Bitcoin such a fascinating phenomenon. Its growth and adoption, at least over recent years, have been mind-blowing. But the story of how Bitcoin came to be is just as interesting. Despite Bitcoin's young age when compared to traditional stores of value, the fundamental ideas behind cryptocurrency may be older than you think. So the question has to be asked, where did Bitcoin actually come from? Who is the mysterious individual who invented it? Sit back, relax. In this 2-part series, we'll find out. For many, Bitcoin is still considered a fad, a Ponzi scheme, something that would disappear as quickly as it materialized. The cryptocurrency has had its fair share of bad reputation through fake crypto frauds such as BitConnect and OneCoin, not to mention its use in payments for narcotics on Silk Road. But the word is starting to get through that Bitcoin is much more than that. People are beginning to look at our economic system with increasing skepticism. Currency is continuously being created. Food prices and bond yields are rising, hinting at inflation. And knowing that the long-term value of all fiat currencies over the last few thousand years has tended towards zero, it's only natural to think that there may be some issues ahead. Friedrich Hayek, winner of the 1974 Nobel Prize in Economics, stated the following in 1984. I don't believe we shall ever have a good money again before we take the thing out of the hands of government. All we can do is by some sly, roundabout way, introduce something that they can't stop. While it's undeniable that Bitcoin is not perfect, it broadly achieves this goal. And, as you'll soon see, it can't be stopped. So before we continue, it's probably wise to have a quick primer on Bitcoin. I first talked about Bitcoin on this channel back in 2013, and since then, we've done a whole bunch of episodes on Bitcoin and blockchain. But for those who are new, here's a quick summary. When you pay a shop using a bank card, the shop checks with the bank to see if you have money to make the purchase. The bank checks its records, verifies that you have enough money, and deducts that amount from your account. It then updates its records and takes a fee for providing their services. If you wanted to remove the banks from the system, who would you trust to keep the records straight? No altering or cheating? No one would ever trust a single person with that much power, but you might trust a collective group of people, millions of them in fact. The main idea is to not have a centralized record of transactions. Instead, many copies of those transactions are distributed across the world. Every owner of each copy records every transaction. In this new model, the shop, rather than checking with a bank, checks with everyone's records to see if you have the money. When the purchase is made, all the record keepers update their records. If an individual transaction record is fraudulent, it doesn't agree with the rest of the copies of the transaction records and gets rejected. This large group of people checking transaction records aren't people at all, but rather a network of computers. There's no need for third parties like banks because the decentralized network keeps itself in check. Amazingly, that means no bans, no server shutdowns or blocking of payments, because payments occur directly between people. Although transactions can be tracked, they cannot be stopped. So-called miners keep the network running by solving complex equations on their computers. These people mine Bitcoin in chunks, called blocks, that contain all recent transactions. Blocks are kind of like a page in a record-keeping book. The miners receive payment in Bitcoin for their effort, much like mining gold. And also, like gold, there's a finite supply of Bitcoin to stop it from being devalued, much like what we're currently seeing in fiat currency. There will only ever be 21 million Bitcoins, and the final Bitcoin will be mined in 2040. So what gives Bitcoin its value? In reality, it's just worth what someone is willing to pay for it. Could the price drop to zero if confidence is lost? Yes, it's possible. But regardless, it's a pretty interesting idea. There's an argument to be made that the value of Bitcoin is actually the trust and utility of the Bitcoin network itself. What the price is for that value, no one is sure yet. So how's Bitcoin maintained? Bitcoin is open source, so anyone can edit the code. It's a misconception that the code has stayed the same for the past 10 years. There's maintenance carried out to ensure smooth functioning. This is done through a Bitcoin Improvement Proposal, or BIP. A BIP is just a document that proposes core changes. But to stop someone from inserting some code that says, say, give every Cold Fusion viewer 1,000 Bitcoin, there needs to be a 95% consensus across the last 2,000 miners. Basically, it's a digital voting system. On January 3, 2009, the first block of Bitcoin was mined. Within this very first block, a special message was written. It read, "The Times 3rd of January 2009, Chancellor on the brink of second bailout for banks." This gives us a clue to Bitcoin's purpose for existing, a response to a broken financial system. And this is where Bitcoin's story really begins.